Welcome back, my name's Steve and thank you for joining me on my photography journey. Today we're going to dive into something that can completely transform your photography and videography, and that is ND filters. These are kind of small but pretty mighty accessories, and they're game changers, to be honest, and I'm going to show you exactly why. So ND, or neutral density filters, are essentially sunglasses for your camera. They reduce the amount of light that's coming in into your lens, and they maintain that color accuracy that you want. So they just make everything darker, really. This allows you to try a few different techniques and help you get the results that you want in both your photography and your videography. Unlike a polarizing filter, the ND will give you control over the exposure, whereas a polarizer will reduce reflections and glare and things like that from water or glass and things, and they also boost colours and saturation. So I started with basic screw-on filters, an ND64 and an ND1000. They work great, but constantly screwing and unscrewing them became tedious, particularly when I was out in the field taking pictures. So that's when I discovered magnetic filters. I saw Polar Pro. They made some that were magnetic and you could just pop them on and off, and it looked so much easier. Obviously these were great quality, good quality glass, so they were also well and truly out of my price range. After a bit of research and looking at other options, I settled on these K&F Concept magnetic filters. They were on sale during Black Friday, and I'm really happy with that decision. I got a case, the screw-on ring that everything else attaches to, and also a magnetic lens cap as well. And here's something important: always buy filters for your largest lens diameter. You can use step-down rings to fit them on smaller lenses, but you can't go the other way around. Also be practical here, because my largest lens is significantly bigger than the rest. So my 180 to 600 is 95 mils. It might make sense to actually get your filters for your next largest lens instead. So my most used lens is my 24 to 200, which is a 67mm filter thread, which is the same as my DX 18 to 24, I think it is. And then my 35mm f1.8 is a 62. So I can use one step down ring to get it fitting onto that one. So how can you actually use ND filters? In portrait photography, creating kind of that nice creamy blur background, particularly in bright conditions. So you want to be able to use your lens wide open, so f1.8 in the case of my current lens, to get that depth of field. But in bright conditions, you might not actually be able to get your shutter speed fast enough to avoid overexposing the picture. And also they can help balance things out a bit. If you've got areas that are very bright, areas that are very dark, it can kind of help. And then in landscape photography, capturing kind of smooth flowing waterfalls, clouds, waves, that kind of thing. So as you remember, we talked about the exposure triangle before. If you want to have a very slow shutter speed to create these things, to allow that water or clouds to move past as you're taking that picture, you need to compensate for that by lowering your ISO or using a very small aperture. That still won't get you the kind of seconds long exposure time that you want to have really smooth waterfalls. So use an ND filter. It basically buys you more time to do that. In videography, maintaining a constant exposure while keeping your main cinematic settings is what you're after. So with video, you want to keep a certain shutter speed so that things look smooth, they look natural when you watch it back. So there is something called the 180 degree rule, and this suggests using a shutter speed of double the frame rate. So for 24 or 30 frames a second, you'd be looking at 1/48th of a second or 1/60th of a second. So that can be difficult to achieve in bright light, so that's where an ND filter can come in helpful. Particularly a variable ND for video, because that can vary the amount of light just by twisting it rather than having to take it off and change it for another one if, for example, the sun goes behind a cloud or something simple like that. So ND filters have a numerical value, for example ND2, ND4, ND1000. These numbers correspond to the amount of light that it's going to allow through that filter. So an ND2 will reduce the exposure by 1 stop, meaning that about half the light will get through. An ND4 reduces the exposure by 2 stops, meaning that a quarter of the light makes it through. And an ND64 reduces the exposure by about 6 stops, meaning that 1/64th of the light comes through. You see the pattern here. So an ND1000 reduces the exposure by 10 stops, meaning that 1,000th of the light gets through. But do remember that you're adding another piece of glass in front of your lens, so quality matters. Cheaper filters, they might affect the actual image or the quality of it, the sharpness of it, or they might even change the colour slightly, which is never good. So it is worth investing in good quality filters from decent brands. They are also more likely to be treated with different coatings to make them more resistant to water, or just generally make them more durable as well. This is even more true for the variable ND filters, as the cheaper ones, when you're turning them, can create kind of a darker X pattern at some of the values that they say on them. So ND filters might seem like simple accessories, but they are essential tools for creating professional looking images and videos. So whether you're shooting landscapes, portraits, or videos like these, having a good set of ND filters in your bag can really make the difference between kind of an okay shot and a really good one. So being able to control your exposure beyond those 3 elements of your exposure triangle does open a lot of opportunities to you to get great pictures. So the next thing for you to do is go out and try some of these techniques. As you know, practice, practice, practice. That's the only way that you'll actually improve your photography and master these new skills, these new tools. So get out there, take some more pictures. Thank you for joining me on my photography journey. I do hope you've learned something about ND filters today and you go out and take some pictures, and I'll see you again soon. Have a great week. Bye.